Africa is rich in nature with natural resources which include gold, diamond, coltan, uranium, petrol, diesel, and so many more minerals. But why Africa continue to be poor? Why Africans are not able to benefit from the natural resource? Do we have to blame only the West for being part of these distractions? Or do we have another reasons that make Africa to be this poor? Is it possible that Africans are also the reasons why Africa continent continue to be poor? We're going to find out in this video because we had prepared for you 12 reasons why Africa is poor. Without delay, let us get to it. Number 1, high corruption. Africa is full of corruption which is dominating everywhere. Corruption in Africa have become as a song of the day. If you fail to comply with corruption in Africa, you must know that you'll be suffering, you'll be going to bed without food, because it is only with corruption you'll be able to have something to put in your mouth. Corruption is dominating in each and every government in Africa. For an example, when an African government wants to give aids to the people, this aid will have to be exchanged with some money in order for people to have these aids. What about giving tenders? The tenders that's supposed to be not choosing anyone, but choosing the companies that deserve to have these tenders. Well, it is full of corrupt people who have to go and have these tenders. Government that's supposed to be fighting corruptions, they are actually number one corrupted people that you'll never see in this planet. It is within the government where you get to see people are being corrupt in the open sky. And these people are not corrupted at a small amount of money. Instead, they want to be corrupt with a big amount of money. Number 2, civil war and terrorism in Africa. Guys, civil war and terrorism will always leave you in poverty. I'll tell you why. When people are in the war, they are not able to settle down. They're not going to be able to move around with their furnitures. They're not going to be able to be working. They're not going to be able to do much. Do you know why? Because they are only having one thing in mind, which is protecting themselves, because their life is in danger. So that is the reason why you see them running up and down, because they are scared that if they have to sit in one place, they'll be killed. So this kind of people, they're never going to be rich, no matter how much natural resource they might be having in their countries. Because of that, poverty will always follow them everywhere, in every action that they have to take. Where there is war, there is no peace, because war will collapse business. War will destroy industry, which will left the people with unemployment. Still, war will destroy even the roads that's supposed to be helping the citizens of these countries to be moving from one place to another place. So the development of the countries will have to stop because they are at war. You will not gonna find any investors who will have to come and invest in the country where there is war, because no one would love to come and invest their money where they know that they're not gonna be able to get their money with benefits. Number 3, Africans hurt themselves. We cannot leave the problem of self-hate as one of the problems that contribute to Africa poverty. We have all to accept that Africans, we hate ourselves. Some people in Africa have the courage to hate themselves to the point of even start bleaching because they want to become like white. Some even change their hairstyle to the one of white people. You'll find African young ladies spending thousands of money on the Brazilian hair and expensive cosmetic, all because they want to look like white women. Some Africans are finding it disgusting to dress in their traditional clothes as Africans, but instead they prefer to dress more classic as white. Some they find even more embarrassing for them to speak their mother tongue. Some they're trying to imitate how to speak like white people, all because they had to attend private school and they feel embarrassed talking their mother language. It is pity to see an African who's hating another Africans to the point of burning them alive, calling them names. But when they see a white guy, they'll be a yes sir, yes mynheer, yes madam. You'll see him or her treating them with all due respect. This kind of self-hate, it is what is contributing to why Africa continues to be poor. Africa will never be rich when an African is hated and Africans are hating themselves too. Number 4, religion. Religion have become one of the biggest African curse. Africans have get religions so wrongly to the point that they'll spend times on their knees fasting for the whole year, asking for deliverance, asking for God to make them rich. Africans believe more in miracles instead of working hard in order for them to achieve what they deserve to have. Instead of waking up, for an example, in the morning, go out and try to find yourself a job. You'll find an African they'll try to dress up in a very smart way in order for them to go to church. Some of them, they'll be sleeping in church from morning until night, saying that, God, I'm waiting for your miracles. God, I'm waiting for you to bless me with a job. How will God even try to bless you with a job if you don't go out there and look for the job? So religions have made Africans become even more lazy to the point of not even think otherwise. Africans, they were brainwashed to not believe their religions as a black child and believe in white people churches, forgetting that this was another way of distractions which they had placed on their way so that the open eye mass system will continue looting and taking advantage of African people. When the founder of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and other social media platforms were busy trying to see on how they can come up with an idea to invade these applications, Africans were more focused on things that does not even make sense. Africans, we believe that in order for you to be rich, you need to be believing in one certain called pastor or prophet in your church. This is why you see that a lot of pastors and prophets are taking advantage of their believers in their churches because they could say that you guys, you are so in with all your body. You believe in everything that these people are telling you instead of you focusing. So they are also part of what it is contributing to the poverty of Africa. So Africa will continue remaining poor as long as we continue believing in these kind of things. That will take us to number 5, lack of good leaders. Africa have more politicians, but we don't have good leaders. These politicians, they are there for their own advantage. These all African politicians are there to protect their own benefit and the interest of the West. These politicians are there to enjoy the free life which they receive from the taxpayer money, for them to live a luxury life, having a big salary, stealing money from the people so that they'll live the life that suits them. These politicians, they are there to get back what they had spent before they become politicians. Remember, their target here is to collect each and every cent that they had spent during their campaign before they become the president of all these nations. So these people, once they are in power, instead of them being good leaders, they'll choose to be just simple politicians in order for them to get every cent that they had spent before they become in power. That is the reason you usually see these politicians, before they become in power, they are nothing. They are just like me and you. But once they are in power, they become billionaires. Their wives, they are the one who will be having the last word to say when it comes to give a person a tender. Their children, they are the one who will have to attend the most expensive school in overseas countries. When you look their lifestyle, the money that they're getting to spend, you look at the salary that they're supposed to be getting as a president or as a minister, you compare it together, it does not match. Do you know why? Because they are corrupt, because they are in the mission to steal, because they are there to fulfill something. So these are kind of people who are making Africa to remain this poor. Number 6, education and knowledge gap. 98% of Africans' children are out of school. Their parents are not able to afford the basic school for these children. Even though some of the government around Africa try to put this basic education for their citizens, but they are not able to have school all over countries. That is why you'll see some of African children are studying outside in the bush. Some of these children are studying under a tree. You can just imagine what will happen if the rain is up there. Why all this? Because the places that the government is supposed to be investing a lot of money to educate a nation, as they said, education raised a nation. But unfortunately, most of this government, they don't invest in education in order for them to give a better education to these children. So these children, when they are growing up without going to school, without having a proper knowledge about life, What do you think this kid will develop tomorrow? What kind of lifestyle will this kid have tomorrow if they did not go to school? If these children can't afford a simple base education, how will they be able to attend the high skills? Because if you have to go and ask each and every developed country on how they get where they are, they will tell you that it's because they had that basic educations which led the youth to attend to the high skills that made them develop their countries. But unfortunately, that's not the case in Africa. Number 7, social grants had made African become even more lazy. I'll explain. Some of the African countries decided to bring out a social grant as a support to their citizens. And this social grant is not that much that someone can buy a house out of it, even a car. It's not that enough money that someone can live on, but it's just a way of a government, of course, politicians who want to remain in power forever. That is their way of them trying to seduce people so that they will continue voting for them. So they do this and support their citizens over this small amount of money. But this small money, it had left a lot of Africans become even more lazy to work for their own money. All because they know that each and every month I'll be able to get something coming from the government. I'll be able to get these ads coming from my government. Some of them just because they know that the government usually pay my children this much of money per month. You will see them start having children if like they are racing. They don't care whether they are married or not. All they want is to see themselves having 4, 5, 7 children in order for them to have a big portion of the money which will come from the government. And all this made a lot of Africans become lazy. I'm referring to those countries which are benefiting from all these social grants. You'll find young men and women who are still strong to go out and look for a job. They don't want that anymore because they're feeling more comfortable with what they're getting from the government. So as long as we still have this kind of mentalities, we're never gonna go anywhere. Number 8, tribalism is keeping Africa poor. If a president is from a certain tribe, you find out that in his cabinet, it will be full of his brothers and sisters who come from the same village, from the same tribe as him. All the big posts in the government, it will be covered by the people that he trusted the most, and these people have to come from his tribe. These are the kind of the behaviors that keep on destroying Africa. That is even the reason why whenever we are talking about the unity of Africans, it becomes even a serious challenge for Africans to be united among ourselves because we have failed to defeat tribalism among ourselves. And that is the reason why you see Africans are finding it even more difficult in order for us to be united and have one country, having one currency, having one militaries, because we are so in love with our tribes and hating other tribes. Number 9, Africans have bad behaviors among ourselves. Let me explain. When African goes to Europe, America, you find that Africans were having different kind of mentalities. But when we're in Africa, our mentality get to change. Here's one example. When you are in Europe, you will see an African, if they open a sweet, they eat, they'll throw that plastic in dustbin. Whatsoever they use, if they find that this thing is dirty, they make sure that they put it at the appropriate place, which is a dustbin. What about in Africa? What happened when they come in Africa? Obviously they change. You find someone eating the sweet, throwing the plastic wherever they are. Whether that place is clean, whether that place is dirty, they don't care. They just throw it there and they move on. So this kind of mentality is showing that we don't want to develop Africa and fight poverty in Africa. Instead, we prefer to behave in a good manner when we're outside of Africa continent. This behavior of throwing plastic everywhere and making everywhere dirty is what is also contributing to the poverty of Africa continent. Because when you eat your sweet and throw your plastic on the road, which means you are expecting for the government to hire someone who will come clean for you. And if the government have to hire someone, which means government, they need to budget and take certain portion of money and pay it to these individuals. So the money that's supposed to be allocated to something else, the money that the government is supposed to be fighting the poverty among Africans, it will have to be allocated to this new service. Now with that, how do you expect Africa to develop and fight poverty? This kind of behaviors, we need to stop it if we really want Africa to develop and become rich. Number 10, Africans don't have agricultures. Guys, there is life in agricultures. China, if they are what they are today, it is because they had started with agricultures, which they had made it as their daily life, where you find men and women, young ones, they are all going to the farm and cultivate food. That is the reason why you see China, they always have food in their home. No matter what could be the crisis around the world, you're never going to see Chinese complaining about food. Instead, they are one of the countries in the world which they are throwing the food each and every day. We're talking about tons of food that these countries throw because they can't eat it. Unfortunately, that is not the case with Africans. Africans, they don't want to be farmers. Africans, they don't want to cultivate. Yet, we are the first one to cry anger. Yep, we are the first one to condemn the government and our leaders, saying that they are not able to provide. So, Africans want everything to be done by the government. Africans, they don't want to be called a farmer because for them, they find it as an embarrassing job, forgetting that most of the richest people out there, they are farmers. So we can't continue complaining about hunger and poverty in Africa when we don't want to cultivate. Africa, we are so blessed. We are having a very big land everywhere, which is full of bush that we can go and start producing food. Unfortunately, we are running away from this kind of things. So if we really want to stop this kind of things, if we really want to change things in Africa, if we really want to see Africa getting to develop, then we need to start thinking on how to take our tools and go in the bush and start cultivating, producing more food so that those who are having hunger out, they will have something to put in their mouth. Number 11, social media had made African remain poor. Every Africans nowadays, they want to become famous and celebrity in social media. You know what I'm talking about. Everyone, they want to be seen in their social media platforms. Instead of taking these social medias as a platforms which you can try to pass your message to the world on how we can bring Africa as one country and remain united, instead of discussing even on how to develop Africa and fight poverty in Africa, Africans are more focused on what is trending in the social medias. When white Europeans, Americans are busy trying to focus on how to create Google, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, whatsoever could be the social media, Africans were busy focusing on how to dance. We have come up with an idea of a dance challenge to see who can dance better than other person. So you can tell already that our thinking is more different to the one of the Europeans. Can't you ask yourself a question? Since you've been dancing like this, how many times have you been paid for that? How many trophies have you won? That you are the best dancer more than everyone. So you are doing something that you are not even benefiting. The only things to benefit from all this is for your video to go viral. So these are the kind of the things that will keep Africa remain poor after all these years. And the number 12, which will be our last one, the Western power contribute to the poverty in Africa continent. Let me explain. The West policy, it has a very big role to play when it comes to the African poverty. Because this West country, they have come to impose their leadership in Africa. They've been closing a blind eyes when it comes to the development of Africans. They come in Africa, impose a puppet government to you as your president, who will be there to work in their advantage, who will be there to make sure that their interest is well protected. These West countries, they come in Africa to implement bad government, dictatorship, all in the name of what they so-called democracy. So that through this democracy, they'll continue looting Africa as their wishes. And they've been doing that for so many years now. So, before we get to blame even Africans, we should think of these West power countries that get to involve themselves in Africans' affair. They've never been there in Africa to help Africa develop. They've never been there in Africa to help Africa fight against poverty. They've never been in Africa to make Africa benefit of their natural resource. Instead, that they in Africa to make sure that Africa remain in conflict, war, killing of one another, so that them they'll keep on looting Africa and continue to develop their countries. So now that you know the 12 reasons why Africa remain this poor, what are you going to do? Are you just gonna sit down and not do anything about this? because we have shown you all the possible reasons that keep Africa remain this poor, no matter of how many natural resources that we're having in Africa, but yet we're the one who are suffering each and every day, yet we're the one who are unemployed, yet we are still poor. What can we do in order for us to change things around and start developing these beautiful countries? These are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. These are the things that we need to work out so that we can try to change things around once for all. Thank you so much for watching this video. It was very important that we come here and try to share with you these 12 reasons that make Africa be this poor after all these centuries. Do us a favor before you leave. Give us your thumbs up. We will really do appreciate. Click on that like button. As more you guys will do that, we'll really do appreciate. But if you want to catch some of our videos time to time, if you want to know more about Africa continent, if you want to know more about African cultures, if you want to know more about what is happening in Africa policies, then you are at the right place, because in this channel we educate the mass and we try to help Africans to know their value regardless of what the world says about Africans. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that whenever we upload our videos, you don't get to miss any of it. For now, continue to be yourself, be good, be kind, have respect for everyone in order for you to be respected. May God bless you all. I'll see you again very soon. Ciao, ciao.